In today's episode, we speak with Lera, an OBGYN nurse practitioner, and she speaks to us today about the things that she wished she knew women knew as an OBGYN nurse practitioner. So she brings in her expertise. And because of this episode is actually going to be broken up into a two-part episode. So stay tuned for part 1. Welcome to Unapologetically Woman, the podcast where women come together to share their unfiltered experiences navigating womanhood. Join us as we dive into candid conversations about periods, perimenopause, postpartum bleeding, miscarriages, and more. This is a safe space where we embrace the raw, real, and often unspoken aspects of being a woman. Get ready to be empowered, inspired, and heard. This is Unapologetically Woman. Welcome back, everyone, to Unapologetically Woman. Today, we are here with Lera, who is the founder and CEO of Whole Womanhood, a holistic practice integrating functional medicine, nervous system repair, and feminine alchemy. Her goal is for women to dive into root cause medicine and feminine energy together to feel truly aligned, alive, and resilient. Now, she is a board-certified OBGYN nurse practitioner with a background in neuroscience, physiology, and behavior. She fuses these specialties with embodiment work that reconnects women to their pleasure, sacred feminine wisdom, vitality, and ability to lead a turned-on life. Thank you so much for joining me here. I am very excited to hear more about your story and how you transitioned from just being a board-certified OBGYN nurse practitioner to really embodying holistic practicing. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy to be here. I think I told this to you offline too. I love the name of this because I think it's about time that we get unapologetic about our womanhood, right? Between yours being Unapologetically Woman and mine being called Whole Womanhood, there's a reclamation going on. There's a frustration, there's a reclamation, there's a lot of movement going on here. So yeah, I'm happy to dive in. I could talk about I was gonna say I could talk about this for days, but I've talked about this for years. This is literally what I do day in and day out. So thank you for doing this. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Listeners, we were talking a bit before, and so I got to hear a little bit about Lera's story, and I'm very excited for her to share this with you guys because she not only has the clinical aspect, she also starts to embody more of a holistic, I like to call kind of matriarch approach to medicine. And we're going to start with, which I start with everyone, which was your relationship with your period. And how was that for you? You know, how old were you when you started? Where were you? And what was the reaction?
Yes. I love this because I think hopefully we're trying to break the stigma right now of clinicians being people who you cannot speak to, right? A lot of times women go to clinicians and it's very cut and dry. Here's your birth control pill, or I'm sorry, this is just normal. It happens to every woman, right? First and foremost, I love speaking about this because just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. Two very different things. And so we've normalized something that has no business being normalized. And for a lot of women, that's their entry hood into womanhood. Right? It's this, what was your first experience? What is your experience with your body? It's what I do all day. And at the same time, I am originally not American, right? So I'm from Eastern Europe. I'm Russian. My relationship, what I thought was super, super interesting is that I didn't actually know that the word that I was taught for vagina was made up. If you ask any person, get this, I have yet to see this. I've been in practice for a lot of years now. And I asked people, particularly in Eastern Europe, what's the word for vagina? And we'll look at each other and be like, what the hell? We don't know. Like there's like there's like nicknames for it. But we're like, wait, what's the actual like penis, vagina, vulva? Like what's the word? I was 24 when I learned the actual word because I had to look it up because I literally, no one I asked knew. I was already a gynecologist. So that literally shows you what culture we grow up in. right? I grew up in a very different culture than America, and it helps really bridge these gaps to be like, women come in all shapes and sizes, and like, absolutely. Why did we all get the shitty end of the stick, right? What happened to all of us? And it's a very small sector of us now that are trying to fight the good fight, and the good fight gets people riled up. But that means that I didn't know anything about my body. I remember being in 3rd grade, watching a video that made me deeply uncomfortable and embarrassed because it was about like a cartoon where someone went sniff their armpit and showed that eventually you're going to smell, and that's when you need to use aerosol deodorant, right? There was a little like an image where they put the aerosol there, and I'm like, number one, I have a practice now where I talk about endocrine disruptors, things that fuck with your hormones. Aerosol is one of them, right? Toxins, all of these things. Well, they were just normalized starting from when we were like 7, 8, 9. And because I'm Russian, I'm a northerner. I'm from St. Petersburg. It's up high on the map. Women who are northern tend to start their periods later. Women who are closer to the equator tend to start them earlier. That's a big problem because now every woman is starting her period years earlier than they should be. So I actually started mine in 7th grade. I might as well have been a grandmother, right? Because now we have girls starting when they're 8 and 9, right? And I can definitely speak to that too, because it was weird 7 years ago. Now it's becoming the norm, quote unquote, again. So I was in 7th grade. I went to the bathroom, and then I called my mom, sobbing that I was dying. That was my first period. I knew that at one point I'd have to use aerosol. At one point I would smell bad. And then at one point I called her still on the toilet on a landline, sobbing that this is the end. Right. And my mom was like, okay, welcome to the club. Right. This is okay. I had Soviet culture is very different in general. And there's very little talk of sensuality, sexuality, body positivity, affirmations, right? I could speak for a lot of Eastern Europe. It's survivors. It's people who have gone through wars and famines, and it's a long history. A lot of countries, a lot of continents have gone through this. But what that is to say is that there's a huge stigma around what it means to be a woman. A woman is someone who works hard. A woman is someone who shuts the hell up and does what needs to be done. And the best kind of woman is a martyr, right? She needs to be selfless, because if she does something for her own needs, she's selfish. Heaven forbid she meets her own needs. Heaven forbid she goes for pleasure. Heaven forbid she actually wants to feel good and doesn't just want to put food on the table and go to bed crying, but at least no one can hear her, right? That's what we've all been conditioned for. So I actually come from a progressive family. I come from a deeply, deeply supportive mama who was as progressive as it gets, given literally communist Russia. Like there's so many factors to it, but it kind of makes it really easy to speak about, because if it happened to me, it happened to pretty much all of us. So even though it was progressive, I was never taught, right? Like, what were we taught? I literally talk about this now in my practice all the time, where I give women in their one-on-ones literally sex ed 101, and I'm like, this is what you should have been taught. And no, this is not the aerosol commercial. This is something deeply, profoundly beautiful. Because as soon as I told people that I started my period, which it took me, I think I told one person in confidence because I was so embarrassed. Right? Middle school, and you already look like a bridge troll, and you're trying to, this before TikTok and before Contour, when like a 7th grader looked like a 7th grader should, right? When we all just looked haggard. So before the blossom, before all of that, I had years and years where I was so ashamed, because if like anyone found out, you think about what we were taught. Oh my God. Oh, welcome to the club. It's going to be shitty. Once a month, you're going to hate yourself. Are you a crazy bitch, or are you on your period? Right? Whoever like sat you down and was like, this is beautiful. And if your body's trying to communicate with you, and if it's giving you symptoms, let's listen. What's it trying to tell you? What if your bleed is your monthly report card, which it is? It's your monthly report card. What is it trying to tell you? What is going on in your body that elicits pain or too much bleeding or emotional volatility? Maybe you're a crazy bitch because something else is going on in the background and your body only knows to communicate with you with the signals that it can give you. We never got that, right? We never actually got like 101 sex ed or hormone talks where it's like, hey, like, just so you know, this is what actually happens in your body. Did you know that you're supposed to be 4 different women in 1 month? You are literally supposed to be. You're not supposed to feel like you did 2 weeks ago. Homegirl, I'm sorry you made plans to go to that party 2 weeks ago, but you're about to start your cycle. So you're not a crazy bitch and you're not depressed. Maybe you are, but you're not if you just suddenly want to break those plans. What if your hormones, what if you were just taught how to read them? So I never got that. Even though I came from a really supportive house, but even though I came from a culture that stigmatized it, right? And so by the time that I really got interested in the female body was because sexually, right? Every woman started talking about how like, I want to have sex, let's just get it over with. And I'm like, that sounds like trash. Where everyone just started being like, are you a virgin? And I was a Russian girl, which means we got to be very sassy, and we wore our leather jackets, and we'd like, I always use that as an excuse. So like, they were like, are you from New York? And I was like, no, I'm from Eastern Europe. And you started like, we just had we had a colder demeanor by nature, right? It's very prized in our culture. That's how you protect yourself. And so it's very confusing for me to look around and be like, why do we now all talk as women about like, oh my God, I take ibuprofen all the time and like I go through 1 billion pads. And then all of a sudden you're 16, 17, 15, 18, whatever. When now no one taught you about your cycle and you realize no one taught you about sex. And now you have this ridiculous double whammy thrown at you where you don't know anything about your own body. And now you weren't taught anything about your own body in relation to another's. Right. And so you are completely down this like deep, dark void where our first experiences shape us so profoundly, but we don't even get the right to speak of them as traumatic or speak of them as shitty or speak of them as something where we were worthy of more. Right. And so for me, it took only about 10 years to be able to even like speak about it. Then I hated it. And so I tried to learn to hack it. And I was unlike you probably, and unlike a lot of other women, because at this point I was the VIP is what I thought. I'm in medicine, which means like I can hack it. I can put myself on birth control. I can figure out, I can run my own labs. I went through a lot of health issues. Early on, and like painful periods and heavy bleeding. And for a lot of women, that's paired with digestive issues. That's paired with headaches. It's paired with eczema. It's paired with constipation. It's paired with depression and anxiety. And so then all of a sudden we normalize that there's this like neat little bow that we can put it on. It's like, sorry, sucks for you. You're just a woman, right? Like that's just what we get. And so I got sick fairly early on. When I was 15, I was unwell. I've been in accidents where I've had to physically relearn how to walk. There's these profoundly, deeply traumatic body experiences that happened. And when I came out of it, I learned to dance as rehab. Yeah, I saw it. Dancing saved me. And between having first relationships where I really treated myself with worth and being able to connect to my body through dance, I started thinking that I don't buy this bullshit. I don't buy this. No, our bodies are much too beautiful. And I decided to go into the system. I decided a lot of things happened to me in the meantime of physical biological malfunctions. I was super sick, and much like a lot of people, right, I was like, I just want to figure it out. So I went to school, I took my boards, I practiced women's health, and I put myself on birth control. Someone else at that time put me on, but I put myself on it when I was like 18. That's a lie. I was on it for 10 years. Ooh. I was on NuvaRing, much like a lot of women, because I'm like, I want to have sex. I guess I'm with a partner that I deeply love. I'm terrified to get pregnant because you can get pregnant all the time, which you can't, right? I tell women all the time, you can only get pregnant for like 6 days of your cycle maximum. Then you can have 7 trillion sexes after that. You won't get pregnant. Nothing's gonna happen. It's impossible. You're infertile. I didn't know that at the time, and I was terrified because I wanted to have this big, bright future where I could be a gynecologist and save lives. And by the time I was a gynecologist, I worked in community medicine, and I was sick as shit. And what I realized is a lot of us who were in the field, a lot of my colleagues who are amazing people, we were all really sick just going to each other, not going for root causes, but saying we all had hormone issues. It just depended on which ones. None of us could decipher them because we literally have a book this thick. If anyone's listening and not seeing, it's like 4 inches. That's literally a book just on how to dose hormonal birth control based on symptoms. And if you get really good, that's what we did. I loved what I did, but I was never given root cause training. We were given algorithmic training. And even though the people who taught me are incredible and the schools I went to are some of the top in the nation, right? We aren't taught to think critically going inward. It's not, okay, but why? But why does your period suck? But why are you crying nonstop? But why are you so bloated? It's outward. What do you need? What can I give you? Right? You're the problem. So how do I fix it? Right? And so what if you're not the problem? Right? What if it's actually the system that's broken? And so you start thinking that because you're looking around and all of us are on birth control. And it's like, do you want Nexplanon? Do you want an IUD? Do you want NuvaRing? Do you want a daily pill? Then you're scared to go off of it because you're going to get acne, right? And you already I looked like a teenage boy for like 15 years because I had cystic acne all over, and you're just doing the best you can. But even when I was literally already in medicine, a lot of us had such deep cyclical problems, and we were never taught to address the root causes. So we would see each other, and I would see my derm friends for my rash stuff or my skin stuff, and you'd get retinol or you'd get whatever, and then they would see me and I would like put in their IUD and we'd figure all of that out. And by that point, my blood pressure was high, which is a side effect of birth control. It's also a side effect of inflammation. Inflammation is essentially the root cause of why women have such shitty periods. There's so much to look into that makes us, like, it proves to me that we're biologically beautiful. And instead, we've been robbed of that, and we've been conditioned to think that we're shit, right? That we're completely just not, we don't have any sovereignty over our bodies. And so that's when I started thinking a little bit deeper. That's when I tell anyone, I tell everyone, I'm not anti anything, I'm pro thinking. Just start thinking about it. Don't believe what they told you. Including me. Ask me why. If I told you maybe here's a suggestion, ask me why. Is there evidence for it? Is there data showing it? Does it have wisdom, experience? Where is it coming from? And do you believe it? And do you intuitively trust it? Right. So by that point, I left medicine. I thought I committed career suicide. I left medicine when I was pregnant with my daughter because I left very poetically on March 8th, which is International Women's Day. Like a little bit planned, where I realized that I can't be in a system that has made me so sick. I can't have a daughter where she grows up as sick as me and I cannot give her any answers. I'm one of the good ones, but I still have, I can give you the yeast infection cream, and we'll switch out the IUD to one that makes you bleed less, and we'll put you on birth control. I'm so sorry that you don't want to go outside because your skin is still erupting and your cycle is too painful. Maybe I can find you a birth control pill. I'm trying, right? But none of us were ever taught. And so that's where my practice came out of. Is I joke all the time that it wasn't a Lifetime movie special where I like left and was like, I'm going to start this thing. It was the opposite. It was started out of desperation. I was sick. No one had answers. People came to me, and we can definitely help them. Conventional medicine is phenomenal, but it's phenomenal for acute care, right? It's a diagnosis. What if you're not sick enough to be diagnosed? Right? I tell women all the time, what if your period, what if your cycle, what if that beautiful bleed that you have is actually trying to tell you something before you're sick and diagnosed, but when you're just unwell, right? And I'm sure you know as many women as I do who are just unwell. And that's kind of where it came from, is I left. I wasn't sure where it would lead. And within a couple of years, I found my way into integrative and functional medicine. And I joke that functional medicine is it's like the but why of the medicine world. It's the toddler of the medicine world. It's like, okay, but why? Where did it come from? Why is your cycle something that you're scared of? More importantly, why is your cycle something where you think it's just your period? Your cycle is the whole thing. What if you have migraines, but you find out they're just during ovulation? That's weird. Those are the same women who get a little itchy. What if you start connecting the dots and be like, it turns out that if you know how to track your cycle, and it's easy, right? It's more effective than hormonal birth control. It's shown in the literature. If you learn how to track your cycle, if someone shows me a chart, for example, of like, hey, this is like my body every day, and these are a couple of factors, which I'm happy to speak about later. I can look at nothing more than a little line and be like, hey, I think you have a thyroid issue. Hey, I think you're anemic, right? Like, let's check it out. We didn't even need to run labs yet, or maybe at all. You can see, hey, I ovulated. I released that egg. Homegirl, 3 days later, have a million sexes. You won't get pregnant. Please protect yourself in other ways if you don't want to get transmission of any kind, but there's so much power to be had. And so I was one of the clinicians at a wonderful clinic that was functional, where we started seeing a lot of people. I really led the women's health department because one of the things that we don't talk about with bleeds is the fact that if your cycle or if your bleed is something that you're really fighting every month, or it's irregular, or it's too heavy, or you feel like, why me? That means that likely something else is going on in your body too. That's a symptom, just like anything else, which means often now I'm a fertility specialist, because our infertility rate has risen so high. It's so high that it's unfortunately out of this world. And so now women come to me in their 30s where they're ready to get off birth control, but they've hated their cycle forever and they're scared to get off of it, but they're ready to start a family. And then they try and they're like, I don't get it. I was on birth control, like me, for 10, 15 years because I was terrified to get pregnant. And now when I want to, I can't. Are you joking? We put women into this lose-lose situation. Right? And so that's a big part of my practice. I started my practice as a hobby. I thought it would be a joke, right? I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I think it's holistic. Who's going to want this? And I, a bit later, found another clinic, and my wait list wound up being about a year long. Women were, to this day, my clinic is only word of mouth. It's been years. It is exclusively word of mouth, right? That's changing now as I build out a course and these other things to try to get this to more women. But that is to say that something really beautiful happened where I am not 25, in case anyone's wondering. I am more healthy now than I've ever been, because the superpower is cyclical living. The superpower is understanding your cycle and reading your body. It's body literacy. And to me, it's your bleed it's a vital sign.
Yes.
A vital sign.
Yes.
So, that's how I wound up here. That's, I think, deeply integrated, where my cycle is integrated into my company. It's integrated in hundreds of women. Like we talk about, I tell women all the time, we're like, even if I talk to my team, I'm like, hey, I'm luteal. And they're like, cool, we're
oh yeah.
Right? Like, and everyone, I'm like, women should know what that means. If a woman, which they do in my practice, I'm like, they come up and I'm like, I'm on day 27 out of 28. I'm like, oh, you are hibernating. This is great. You're about to go into winter. You're going into a fertile void, right? There's this language that's powerful that you can use that shows that we're no longer dealing with the bullshit, honestly, of saying like, oh, I'm just being crazy, or, oh, I'm just being whatever, or, oh, I hate my body because of this. If you align yourself to it, you gain power instead of feeling like you're victimized or traumatized. So I think it's hands down one of the most powerful things I work with, one of the most powerful things I live with. It just took me about 20 years to get there.
You know, wow, there are so many points that you hit, especially like with the time frame, that I definitely want to jump back into. And before we continue, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to be back to discuss some of the top hitting points that we got here. So stay tuned. Welcome to Unapologetically Woman, the podcast where we dive into all things related to women's health, empowerment, and success. I'm Ms Tonya, a dedicated life coach using menstrual cycle synergy to help women executives, women entrepreneurs, and corporations, helping them establish better policies to accommodate women. If you are enjoying today's episode and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Share this video with a woman who would benefit from our discussions. We're always looking to grow our community and empower more women. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below sharing the insights you gained from today's episode. And don't forget to like this video to show your support. If you are watching during the premiere, make sure you leave a comment during the premiere below in order to enter into our monthly giveaway where you'll receive live CBD resin gummies, CBD skincare products, a period tracker planner, and a spa certificate. Winners will be tagged and announced. New episodes premiere on YouTube on Wednesdays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. If you're ready to take the next step towards your own empowerment, book a free 15 life coaching session with me. Visit www.mistonya.com to schedule your session today. For corporations looking to support women's health, I offer consulting services to help implement better policies. This episode is going to be a 2-part series episode, and we decided at the last minute to continue the second part of Lera's story in the second half. So that story will be coming out next Wednesday. So make sure you stay tuned for that as Lera goes more deep, and I mean set out a big chunk of time, you guys, because you're going to be with me for about an hour. So thank you for your understanding on this, and we'll see you next week to continue Lera's story. Thanks for joining us today. Learn more about our guests in the description below. Download your free period tracker to stay in tune with your energy levels, mood, cravings, and your flow. Interested in being a guest on our show? Complete the form in the description. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts on today's episode and be entered into our surprise monthly giveaway. For women looking for a natural way to relieve menstrual cramps, try live resin gummies to ease menstrual cramps. The link is available in the description. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more empowering content. This is Unapologetically Woman.